The 2019 NBA draft is an unbelievably talented group, but also a really, really interesting one. So let's regrade the draft so that everybody can get mad at me about what grades I pick. Really quickly though, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Prize Picks. Right now is a great time to be a basketball fan, as you all know, and it's a great time to get started with Prize Picks as well. They have a millionaire promotion going on right now throughout the entirety of the postseason, and that means that every single day, one lucky Prize Picks user will have an opportunity to become a millionaire. Every single game day during the postseason, Prize Picks will select one entry that was submitted after 8 a.m. that day. That entry will be given a 6-pick selection with the following payouts. 4 correct is $16,000, 5 correct is $80,000, and 6 correct picks is $1 million. All you have to do to make sure you're involved in this is opt in when you make your selections and then play Prize Picks as normal. If you've never tried Prize Picks before, this is how it works. You go onto the site, you look and see what numbers they have set for individual players. You pick more or less for between 2 and 6 players, and the more that you get correct, the more cash that you win. And you guys have heard me say this before, but it's especially relevant now in the postseason. My favorite thing about Prize Picks is there's so many different options. They have so many different number sets for so many different players, whether it be points, assists, rebounds combined, made threes. A lot of the individual stuff is really fun for me specifically. So, made threes, turnovers, blocks, steals, some of those smaller numbers rather than some of the bigger, points, more or less numbers. Those are really fun to put together. And right now is a fantastic time to get into Prize Picks as well, because first-time depositors can use my code SPORTING and click that link in the description for a 100% deposit match up to $100. Again, that is first-time depositors. The link is in the description. Use code SPORTING, 100% deposit match up to $100. Please play responsibly, and you must be 19 and older to play. Full details for the millionaire promotion can be found at prizepicks.com/million, and thank you again to Prize Picks for sponsoring this video. We begin at number 1 overall, and this is the most difficult grade of the entire video. I gave the Pelicans a B grade for the Zion Williamson selection. The only reason is because the guy cannot stay healthy. I fully believe that if Zion was just healthy all the time, he's a top 15, a top 20 player in the NBA. He's an all-NBA caliber player when healthy from what we've seen on the floor from him to this point in his career. However, when you have players as good as Ja Morant that we're going to talk about later, some of these other guys that get selected later on in the draft, and the guy that you picked first overall in a talented draft class plays like 120 games in 4 seasons, you're not going to get a very good grade. So as of right now, this is a B with the disclaimer that it could go to an F or an A over the next couple of seasons. That's what I'm going to stick with for now. Number 2 overall, Ja Morant, it's very easy. It's an A+. This is an unbelievable player despite some issues that he's had, this season, or maybe you're concerned about his long-term injury risk. But from the moment that he's shown up in the NBA, he's been an incredible playmaker, can get to the rim anytime he wants, continues to improve as an offensive player, specifically in terms of his ability to shoot and space the floor. A devastating offensive player. No grade other than an A+ is appropriate here for Ja Morant at number 2. Number 3, RJ Barrett. I was so excited for RJ Barrett when he came into the league, and I'm gonna have to give them a C for this selection. It's just sometimes RJ Barrett has a couple of weeks and it's like, that's the guy. Like, that's the guy that we thought RJ Barrett was gonna be. And then he has other weeks where he can't hit a single shot. He's not prioritized at all offensively, and he doesn't guard. And it's like, where are we going to end up here? It feels like someone that's never going to be an all-star, someone that might end up being kind of interesting later on in his career, but really is plateaued in his development. It's very, very disappointing. Number 4 overall, DeAndre Hunter. I'm also going to give a C grade for this selection. There's some other guys later on you certainly can make an argument that you should have selected over DeAndre Hunter, and it's just been kind of disappointing. Like, sometimes he's just out there and like he guards a little bit, maybe makes a shot occasionally, but just isn't overall that impactful. You don't notice him that often, so I'm going to give them a C grade for number 4 overall. Number 5 though, Darius Garland, probably one of my favorite players in the entirety of the class. It's an A+ selection. I was very, very critical of this selection at the time. They already had Colin Sexton on the roster at the time. Then of course they bring in Darius Garland, and he barely played in college because of injury issues. I didn't understand why he was a top 5 pick given how difficult it was to evaluate his college tape. He didn't have any basically, and he's been unbelievable. He's one of the true point guards in the entire league in terms of someone that wants to default to his teammates, wants to get other guys involved, and maybe long term you're a little bit concerned about the fit between him and Donovan Mitchell because of how much Mitchell needs the ball. But Garland's unbelievable. It's an A+ selection, no doubt about it. Number 6, the complete opposite end of the spectrum, Jarrett Culver, F- for this selection. And all the stuff that's happened with Minnesota over the last couple of seasons, we forget about this selection. Jarrett Culver is just an absolute 0 for them. Did nothing for them, never even kind of looked like he was going to do anything, and it's just been been honestly one of the more disappointing selections in the entire class, as well as of the last couple of years in the NBA. Numbers 7, 8, and 9 here are going to all get grouped together because they all have the exact same grade, and it's a C. They've just been kind of Number 7, Kobe White. Number 8, Jackson Hayes. Number 9, Rui Hachimura. Lakers fans, I know that he's played a little bit better recently, but also towards the end of the regular season, he like barely played, and he got traded for a couple second-round picks. It's not great value for a former top 10 selection, right? All of these guys have been fine. Maybe one of them improves. Maybe one of them has a nice, decent career, but the odds are that pretty much all 3 of them are going to just be kind of rotation players, which is disappointing for a top 10 selection. Speaking of disappointing for a top 10 selection, number 10 overall, Cam Reddish. I'm going to give, at the time, I guess it's Atlanta, and now some other teams have taken a chance on him. I'm going to give it a D grade. I like Cam Reddish. I think he's a good basketball player. I just think he has issues at times fitting into a team and reining himself in, and mentally, I think he thinks that he's way better than he is specifically offensively. If Cam Reddish would just focus on being a defender and on hitting shots off the ball and not doing all kinds of crazy stuff offensively, he'd be very, very good. He's an incredible defender. He has an uncanny ability to get steals, get in the passing lanes, lock guys down, and he just won't commit to doing it. And as a result, coaches aren't playing him, and he's just a wild card offensively. There's a path for Cam Reddish to be a good, NBA player. It hasn't happened. It's very disappointing. I'm going to give him a D grade. Number 11 now, Cam Johnson of the Phoenix Suns. I'm going to give them a B+ selection here. There are a couple of players here coming up with a little bit more upside than Cam Johnson long term. It's the only reason they didn't get a better grade for this, but this is still an outstanding selection for Phoenix, and now with Cam Johnson in Brooklyn. A lot of criticism for this at the time. I remember specifically people being very surprised that he was the selection, and has just been a really, really good shooter. I think he came into the league a little bit older, which was one of the reasons people were pretty critical of the selection. Really, really good player. The number 11, overall pick. Number 12, PJ Washington. I'm going to give Charlotte a B here, partially because of the player that gets selected right after this, and also because although PJ Washington is good, I like him a lot. Certainly not someone with like all-star upside, or maybe even not even starter level upside on a good team. So a solid player, for a lottery selection, which is why you get the B grade there. Number 13, Tyler Hero. I'm going to give Miami an A grade. The only reason it's not an A+ is because of his issues defensively, and I don't want to say he peaked as a rookie, but in terms of his overall impact, you could argue that he's never been more impactful than he was as a rookie, specifically in the bubble and in the postseason. But he's still a very good player. I think he's someone that's going to challenge to be 6th man of the year every single year as long as he's coming off the bench, and certainly is a starting caliber player as long as you can figure some stuff out defensively with him. And the 13th overall pick, that's very, very good. I'm going to give them an A grade for this. Now we get into some really interesting selections because this is a really deep class. There's a lot of guys to talk about from 20 on down. We begin at 20 with Matisse Thybulle. Maybe I'm being kind here, but I'm going to give this a B selection. It was initially Philadelphia. Now I believe he's in Portland, and it's almost like Cam Reddish, but if Cam Reddish literally couldn't shoot. Like, I think Cam Reddish can shoot. He just has a lot of weird wild card offensive stuff. But Matisse Thybulle just is completely unable to space the floor. He's one of the better defensive players in the entire league, quite frankly, and he just can't stay on the floor. But because of that defensive upside, I'm going to give this a B grade for now. It's later on in the first round, and when you have a player that legitimately can play, if he could just figure out how to shoot the ball, I'm going to give it a B grade. Next up, 21, Brandon Clarke, B+ for this selection. I remember people being very surprised that Brandon Clarke fell as far as he did, and he fits perfectly in Memphis. He's an agile big that can guard, is incredibly athletic at the rim, pretty solid rebounder. Again, borderline starting caliber player in the 20s. You're going to take that every day of the week. That's a good selection there for Memphis. 22, Grant Williams. I'm going to give this a B. It would have been a better grade before the latter part of the season, but he's been kind of buried on the bench in Boston. He like barely plays, and he was really critical to them. Last year, over the last couple of seasons, his improvement, especially as a 3-point shooter, has been huge for them. He's a versatile and an interesting defender, but has not been as impactful lately for Boston. So I'm going to give them a B grade for this. Next up, 28, Jordan Poole. It's kind of the Tyler Hero thing. Like, I'm going to give them an A. It's obviously awesome value at 13 for Hero as well as at 28 for Jordan Poole, but they're just not like my favorite kind of players. Like guys that are such a negative defensively, and in Poole's case, can kind of hijack stuff offensively a little bit. It's still great value. I'm trying not to let the contract thoughts like bleed into this grade here. It's still fantastic value this late in the draft, but I'm only going to give it an A grade. I'm also going to give an A grade to number 29, Keldon Johnson. I think there's a lot of really interesting versatility with Keldon Johnson in terms of what he can do offensively, his length, some defensive instincts there. He's a really intriguing player. Maybe not someone that's ever going to be like an all-star caliber guy, but there's some traits there that I really, really like. And given where they got him in the draft, I'm going to give him an A grade here. 30, Kevin Porter Jr. Again, not my favorite kind of player, but certainly a talented offensive player. I'll give them a B grade for that. Nick Claxton, same thing, B grade. Very good defensively, can't shoot free throws, struggles to finish at the rim sometimes, is a little bit of an awkward offensive player, but defensively very good. 44, Bol. Some people are going to be surprised with this. I'm going to go with a B grade for this. Like, I know that there's some upside there and people were really excited about Bol, but there's still some injury concerns there, and I'm not convinced that on teams other than Orlando he would have gotten nearly as much run as he did this most recent season. And then 48, Terrence Mann is going to be an A grade for me as well. I like Terrence Mann a lot. I think he's a rotation player, and when you're picking someone with one of the last 13 picks in the entire draft and you get a legitimate rotation player that can play in the playoffs, that's fantastic value, and so you get an A grade from me. And there you have it. That's the 2019 draft. Like I said, really interesting, really deep class. Let me know down in the comment section below what grades you agreed with the most and the least. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.